Peptic ulcer, acid peptic disease, both are the same. And this is important from examination point of view. As I told you, Barrett's esophagus, then pleomorphic adenoma, and the third one, upper GIT. These three important topics you must know. They are asked repeatedly. Of course, anything can be asked in university exam, but these are quite important and you should know it completely. So we'll be talking about definition of peptic ulcer, sites, different sites, and its pathogenesis, and of course, morphological features, gross and microscopic, and complication. To the anatomy, stomach is divided into four parts: cardiac part, fundus, body, that is corpus, and antrum. And types of glands are cardiac glands, which are mucus secreting. Fundus and body, they are gastric or axanthic glands, and they contain parietal cells. Antral or pyloric glands, which contain mucus secreting and endocrine cells. So you should know these four parts of the anatomy of stomach, as well as the different type of cells which are found in different parts of the stomach, like cardiac and mucus secreting cells. Fundus and body, they have got this axanthic glands which contain parietal cells and chief cells and a few endocrine glands. Then pyloric glands or antral glands, they contain mucus secreting and endocrine glands. Now, these are the four compartment: fundus, cardiac end, that is just below the esophagus, cardiac, fundus, body, and this antrum. This is the pylorus and then duodenum. So these are the four components of the, and this is the gross appearance of stomach mucosa. You know, see here, the esophagus is white and this is the red. Now, this is histology of the stomach. Now you see, this is called foveola. This one part is called, and they are mostly mucus secreting glands. Foveolar glands are, and then these are the gastric glands which are going from the surface to the submucosa. This is musculus mucosa, and these are the, I'll show you each gland. Now this is a one single gland which shows different type of cells: parietal cells, axanthic cells, then mucus cells. See, mucus cells are mainly confined here. These are the endocrine cells. These are the parietal cells, and this is the isthmus, neck, and body. Then parietal cells, endocrine cells, chief cells is there at the bottom. Now types of cells. Mucus cells are foveolar cells. I told you mucus cells are mainly on the foveola, that is upper part of the glands. They are in cardiac and antral region and secrete mucus and pepsinogen 2 and surfactant. Parietal cells in fundus and body secrete acid and intrinsic factor. Chief cell, the deep gastric pits, I told you, of the fundus and body, and they secrete pepsinogen, which is converted to pepsin. This is proteolytic enzymes. And the endocrine glands, enteroendocrine, they are scattered among the epithelial cells of fundus, body, and antrum, and they produce gastrin. And this gastrin produces acid. Secretion of gastrin leads to production of acid, HCl. Now, what are the factors which protect the mucosa from ulceration? One is mucus secretion and surfactant. Alcohol disrupts this surfactant layer because it is soluble in alcohol. So, mucus and surfactant. Bicarbonate secretion creates pH neutral microenvironment. Then intercellular tight junction between the cells, it is tight junction, so nothing permeates through that and prevents back diffusion of hydrogen ion. And if there is any disruption, it is quickly repaired. So intercellular, that is between the cell, this junction is very tight. So this hydrogen ion don't go because so the pH is quite low, so it will damage the mucosa. So that's why this tight junction is there. Then rich blood flow of the mucosa, which supplies bicarbonate and other nutrients and removes acid, and acute repair response it causes. If there is damage, it will cause it. So it is rich blood supply, intercellular tight junction, bicarbonate secretion, mucus secretion, and surfactant. And then muscularis mucosa, which is below the mucosa, thin muscle layer, not that muscularis propria. It is intact and repair occurs. So if damage is above that muscular mucosa that is confined to the mucosa, then it is really actually repaired very quickly. So you should know what are the protective substances in the mucosa, that is secretion, mucus secretion, surfactant, bicarbonate, intercellular tight junction, rich blood flow, and this is not that important. So now what is definition of peptic ulcer? It is a chronic ulcer and it is generally solitary. So chronic, most often solitary, and it is very well circumscribed. GIT mucosa, it is not only stomach. I'll tell you what are the various sites of peptic ulcer. So GIT mucosa that occurs in any portion of the GIT, which is and this wherever it occurs, that part should have been exposed to the aggressive action of acid and pepsin, that is acidic peptic juice. So acid and that proteolytic enzyme should be there to cause it. So it is a chronic ulcer, mostly solitary. It is well circumscribed in the gastrointestinal mucosa, and it occurs in area which is exposed to acid peptic juices. Acid peptic juice, acidic peptic juice, which contains what? Acid, gastrin, pepsin, and then surfactant. All those things are there. The male, it is more common. So it is more common in males. That is duodenal ulcer. There are two important that occur in duodenum, and those occur in the stomach. So this duodenal ulcer is more common actually, and it is 3 times more common in males. Then gastric ulcer is 2 times more common in the males than the females. And it has got a remitting and relapsing. Means it becomes all right for some time and then again occurs. And most important cause when we come to the etiology, it is H. pylori, that bacteria, Helicobacter pylori, and this causes the most of the peptic ulcer. So you should know what is definition of peptic ulcer. Chronic ulcer, mostly solitary, occurs in GIT mucosa, which is exposed to acidic peptic juices. That you should know. Now these are the sites of peptic ulcer. Generally, when we ask in Viva, you people only say stomach and all this. But there are so many sites, at least 3, 4 you should enumerate. Duodenum, first portion, anterior and posterior. Stomach, antrum, lesser curvature. Gastroesophageal junction, as I told you, with GERD and that Barrett's esophagus. Within the margins of gastrojejunous, when there is a removal of part of the stomach and the stomach this duodenum is bypassed, so it is anastomosis done between gastric and jejunum. So that junction is very exposed to stomach ulcer, and that is the fourth site. Multiple sites in patient with Zollinger-Ellison syndromic gastrinoma. Gastrin causes HCl production. So if there is a tumor of gastrin producing cells, then it will lead multiple ulceration in the stomach, duodenum. And last one is ectopic gastric mucosa. Ectopic means gastric mucosa is present in other sites than the stomach. And that is Meckel's diverticulum. It is in a small intestine. You should remember that this formula of 2. It occurs in 2% population. It is 2 feet from ileocecal junction and it is 2 inches long. There are many anatomical variation, but you should remember this formula of 2%, 2 feet from the junction of ileocecal junction, and it is 2 inches long. When you come to surgery, they will be talking about. So these are the various sites you should remember. Duodenum is most common, then stomach, gastroesophageal junction, that is Barrett's, then margins of gastrojejunostomy site, then multiple ulcer in Zollinger ulcer syndrome, Jellison syndrome, and then Meckel's diverticulum. So these are the 6 sites, at least 3, 4 you should know. Now we come to etiopathogenesis. What is etiology? Now these are the various etiological agents. H. pylori infection, I told you, most important. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like brufen, aspirin, all those. Then hyperacidity, as I told you, in Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, it is a gastrinoma, that is an endocrine, intraendocrine producing cells, and that leads to hyperacidity. Cigarette smoking, alcohol, I told you, alcohol neutralizes surfactants. Cigarette, I'll tell you, causes increased secretion as well as decreased this protective response. Then duodenogastric, I told you gastroesophageal reflux in cases of Barrett's esophagus GERD. Here it is duodenogastric reflux, means duodenal content coming to the gastric lumen. So this is a duodenogastric reflux. Then corticosteroids. A-type personality. What is A-type and B-type? A-type is those hyperactive people, no, very ambitious, restless, always under stress. You must be having many people in your class. Type A personality, very active. B is of course quiet, relaxed, easygoing. Now, the another important factor is stress. Now, stress can be emotional, that is, if there is some sad news and all that, or it can be trauma or any major surgery. Now, in cases of head injury, the ulcer which occurs in stomach is called Cushing ulcer. And in cases of severe burns, the ulcer in the stomach is called curling ulcer. So the stress, these patients are under stress, so physical, emotional. So then genetics 3 times more common in first degree relation, and blood group, that is group O, and those who do not secrete the in the saliva, non-secretors. So non-secretors means those who do not secrete the blood group substances in the saliva. They are non. Others who secrete in the saliva that blood group substances. So they are called secretor and non. So non-secretor and no blood group. So these are the various etiological agents of peptic ulcer. You should know all this. H. pylori, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, hyperacidity, cigarettes, alcohol, duodenogastric reflux, corticosteroids, personality, A type of personality, then physical, emotional stress, 2 types of ulcer known, curling ulcer in head injury patient, Cushing ulcer in the head injury person, and curling ulcer in the burn cases. Then genetics and blood group and non-secret. So these are the various etiological agents. Now we'll come to pathogenesis. Now pathogenesis, the ulcer is produced by imbalance between the defense mechanism and damaging force. So offending and defending. It is a balance between the two. When this, so an ulcer doesn't occur when both are in balance. But when this balance is disturbed, that imbalance occurs, then ulcer will be produced. So what are the offending agent and what are the defending agent? Now these are the defending agent, mucosal defense, as I told you earlier also, that slide. First line of defense is mucus, bicarbonate, and the surfactant. You know, first line of defense is mucus, bicarbonate, surfactant, and it stabilizes the pH between the lumen and the surface epithelial cell. Mucus gel in patient with H. pylori infection was found to be structurally weak. So that's why it more commonly occurs in H. pylori. Duodenal mucosa as well as bicarbonate secretion is reduced in patient who smoke cigarettes. So that's why I was telling you, smoking is important because it decreases the bicarbonate secretion in the gastric content as well as mucus. Now second line of defense is, as I told you, intrinsic epithelial cell defense, that is intercellular tight junction. So epithelial defense, mucus, bicarbonate, surfactant, And this intercellular tight junction prevents back diffusion of hydrogen, as I told you there when I was talking about that various mucosal defense, thus maintaining a normal intracellular pH. And any disruption occurs, it is quickly repaired. So first line of defense is mucus layer, bicarbonate secretion, surfactant. The second line of defense is intrinsic epithelial cell defense, that is intercellular tight junction. And third line of defense is rich mucosal blood supply, that I told you there. It helps in diluting the acid as well as any damage done. It helps in repair, quick repair. The blood provides buffer for acid neutralization as well as adequate nutrition for the mucosal integrity. So anything which is damaged is repaired easily. So rich blood supply of the mucosa. And last one is that fourth one, you should remember this prostaglandins. I have told you what are prostaglandins. Prostaglandin and prostacyclin, that I2, E2 and all those, even. Now, prostaglandins are found in high concentration in gastric mucosa and gastric juice. And what is function of these prostaglandins? They inhibit acid secretion, they stimulate mucus and bicarbonate secretion, and they also increase mucosal blood flow. And that's how they provide a dramatic protection against a wide variety of agents that cause mucosal damage. So this prostaglandin is very important because all those three defense mechanisms, that is mucosal defense, then rich blood supply, as well as bicarbonate, they are all produced by this prostaglandin. So it is a very important. This controls all those three defense mechanisms. So these are the various defensive mechanisms you should know. Now we go to an offending agent, damaging forces. Now gastric acid we all know. Without acid there won't be any ulcer. Pepsin is like proteolytic. So it causes the lysis of protein, that is cell protein. H. pylori is the most common nowadays. Then NSA, IAD, aspirin, alcohol, smoking, caffeine, duodenogastric reflux, others like ischemia, shock, stress. So all those etiological agents which I told you in earlier slide, this is just not all, few of them. Those are the damaging force. Starting from H. pylori, hyperacidity, then NSAID, alcohol, smoking, gastroduodenal reflux, then stress, is that emotional stress, physical stress, blood group, secretor, type A personality, all those are the damaging force. So if there is a balance between the damaging and protecting, this is just to show these are the damaging forces and these are the protecting. CH. pylori, gastric acid, pepsin, NSAID, all those. Here bicarbonate, prostaglandin, mucus production of mucus production, blood flow of mucosa. These are all protective. So if the balance is there, this is straight. If balance is disturbed, imbalance is there, peptic ulcer will occur. See. So you should remember this imbalance between the defense as well as offense. Now, for acid, gastric acid, adequate acid necessity for duodenal. If there is no acid, there won't be any duodenal. It is not that for the gastric ulcer. Remember, no acid, no ulcer. Now we come to gastric peptic ulcer and then duodenal. If you know this gastric peptic ulcer, similar is duodenal ulcer, only site is different. But gastric ulcer can also go to malignancy, that is gastric carcinoma. That's why we are talking about this. So peak incidence is 50s, 51, 52, 60. Association chronic gastritis, Helicobacter pylori, 50 to 60% cases. Chronic gastritis caused by Helicobacter. Helicobacter pylori causes gastritis. The location of ulcer is in the lesser curvature and most commonly the antrum. So antral part of lesser curvature is the most common location. It can occur other places also. Up to 50% have a concomitant duodenal ulcer. Side by side, 50% of cases of gastric ulcer have got also duodenal. Now these ulcer occur in mucosa exposed to acid and pepsin that I have already told you. So now what is the gross appearance of the peptic ulcer? As I told you, it occurs in lesser curvature, more in the antral area. It is less than 4 centimeters. This is important. Generally, it is less than 4 centimeters. It is round and oval, punched out. Means its edges are straight. And it has got a clean base. There is no pus, there is no debris there in the base. Then margins are usually perpendicular. I tell you, I like punching, you do in a paper. So margins are perpendicular and they level with the surrounding mucosa. The mucosa is undermined at the edges. It goes inside. Mucosa goes inside. And there is no beading, that is a dot nodular things at the margin or significant elevation. That is important. Okay, now this is a morphology, gross morphology of gastric peptic ulcer. As I told you, lesser curvature more common in antrum. 4 centimeter, it should be less. It has to be round or oval in shape, punched out area, clean base. Margins are perpendicular. Mucosa is underlined at the edges and surrounding mucosal fold. Stomach has got mucosal folds. I'll show you what is that. And they radiate like a wheel of a spoke. Now, like a spoke of wheels, these mucosal fold radiate from the ulcer to the periphery. And this is important when we come to cancer. This fold is obliterated around the ulcer if it is a malignancy. So this is a gross morphology of the gastric peptic ulcer. Similarly, will be the duodenal peptic ulcer. But duodenal peptic ulcer never undergoes malignancy, so we are not much concerned about that, whether it is large or small, but generally it is small. So this is a morphology of gastric peptic ulcer you should know. Now these are the pictures. See, this is a round oval, well circumscribed, punched out edges. These are the mucosal fold radiating from the ulcer margin. See another one showing the same thing. These are mucosal fold. This, this, this. And there should not be this margin. This margin should be undermined. It should not be up. And base is generally very clean. So all those features are here. And then we go to under microscope. Now chronic also, as I told you, this is always chronic. It has got 4 zones. The superficial, that is the base of the ulcer and margins, have a thin layer of necrotic one, dead fibrin-like debris. So that is a superficial layer, which is a necrotic debris. Then zone of active non-specific inflammation with neutrophil predominant. So below that debris is the inflammatory zone. And below that is a granulation tissue. And below that is a collagenous scar of fibers. These are all features of healing and inflammation. I have talked to you in the that inflammation and acute and chronic inflammation. Features of chronic inflammation, I told you, it is a healing. Side by side, there is inflammation as well as healing. So there will be healing of a big necrotic tissues by granulation tissue. So this ulcer, there is a superficial dead, this necrotic debris, below is inflammation. Then there is a features of healing, that is granulation tissue and this fibrous or collagenous scar. So these are 4 layers of the ulcer under the microscope. Now this is shown here. These are undermined edges. It is not up like this. It is like this. This is called undermined. This is a debris. Now these are the 4 layers shown by diagrammatically. This is ulcer. This is a debris. This dead necrotic tissue. This is inflammatory cells. These are the granulation blood vessels, macrophages, fibroblasts, granulation tissue. And then this is a fibrous tissue. That is a scar, fibrosis. Fibrosis, granulation tissue, inflammatory layer, mononuclear cells, and then necrotic debris. So this is a peptic ulcer diagrammatically. You should remember these 4 layers and gross, as I told you earlier. This is a very large, giant gastric ulcer. Still, it has got undermined edges. These folds are coming here, so it is benign and it is not. And it is, if it is a bigger than 4 centimeter gastric ulcer, you have to think about the malignancy, ulcer cancer. So that's why all these features, what I told you about the rugal fold, undermined edges, and clean base, and all those are important for differentiating gastric ulcer from gastric cancer. Now, duodenal peptic are all the features of the gastric ulcer. As I told you, you have to say it is punched out, all those clean surface, all those features will be here also. Only thing, it is 4 times more common than gastric ulcer, and it occurs at a younger age, 40s. That was in 50s. And site of duodenal ulcer is first portion of the duodenum anterior wall. This is the most common site. First part of duodenum in the anterior wall. So this is duodenal peptic ulcer. Morphologically, gross and microscopic feature will be same as gastric ulcer. Now this I'll come later on. See, these are the duodenal ulcer. There are 2, 3. When there are more number, then you start thinking of Zolger-Ellison syndrome. This is a duodenal ulcer. This is that superficial layer, then same will be here also. This is ulcer. This is muscular layer. Now, complications of peptic ulcer. This is a very important. This has been asked many times, even why it will be asked. So, first complication is bleeding. How bleeding will occur? If the ulcer erodes one of the blood vessels in the base of the ulcer, it will lead to excessive bleeding and hematemesis. The patient will be bringing out blood in the vomitus. So, most frequent complication is bleeding, occurs in 15 to 20% of patients, and it accounts for 25% of ulcer death. Nowadays, of course, this incidence has become decreased because we have got the medical treatment. Earlier, when it was not there, it was very common. People used to die because of hematemesis. And many times it may be the first manifestation. The second complication is perforation, penetration, or peritonitis. Penetration means the ulcer will go deep till serosa, and it perforates, breaks down the cellular, the intestine, gastric or duodenal wall, and all the contents of the stomach or duodenum will go into the peritoneum, leading to peritonitis. So penetration, perforation, and peritonitis occurs in 5% of patients and accounts for 2/3 of the death. So this is a very dangerous complication if it perforates. Then obstruction. It occurs in 2% of patients, and the obstruction is more common where it is in the duodenal area, that is a antrum, or in the more common in the antral area if it is a gastric ulcer, or it is in duodenum if it is a duodenal ulcer. And why it occurs obstruction? Because of fibrosis and stenosis of the antrum or that pyloric junction. So there will be obstruction, so there the gastric content will not pass very easily to duodenum. So that will lead to the intractable vomiting, means continuous vomiting will be there because nothing is passing down the duodenum. So whatever you eat or drink, it will be thrown out by vomiting. Then last complication is, in case of only stomach or gastric ulcer, it can convert it to carcinoma of stomach. So these are the 4 complications you should remember: bleeding, penetration, perforation, and peritonitis, obstruction, and carcinoma of the stomach. So these are the 4 complications you should know. So these are the complications. So you should know what are the various sites of peptic ulcer. Then what is the etiology of peptic ulcer, those offending agents. Then what is the pathogenesis, that is what are the offending agent and what are the defending agents, and balance between two. And when the balance is disturbed, imbalance occurs, then ulcer will be produced. Most important cause is of course H. pylori and all. Now after that, morphology of gastric and ulcer, actually peptic ulcer, whether it is gastric ulcer or duodenal ulcer. Morphology is same, except that in the stomach, if it is large and in the stomach, it can convert to gastric carcinoma. That's why you should know all the gross features which are differentiating a carcinoma from benign condition, that is ulcer. So you should know the etiopathogenesis, then morphology, microscopic, and those 4 layers you should know. And all the features of gross, that is a punched out, clean base, undermined edges, rugy, that rugal folds of the stomach reaching up to the ulcer. All those features you should know. Gross, size is less than 4 centimeter. And then complication. So these are the thing. Site, definition, site, etiology, pathogenesis, morphology, gross and microscopic, and complications of peptic ulcer. So this is what you are supposed to know. Somebody may ask, what is the mechanism of H. pylori causing peptic ulcer? Now you know H. pylori, to be taught in microbiology. It is a gram-negative bacteria. It is a curved. It is called, earlier it was called Campylobacter, now it is called Helicobacter. Important role in causation of peptic ulcer disease. Why it is called peptic ulcer disease? Because it occurs in areas where there is acid pepsin secretion. So it is not only stomach, that is gastric ulcer, duodenal ulcer. There are so many in that gastroesophageal junction, Meckel's diverticum. So that's why it is called peptic ulcer disease. Only 10 to 20% infected with H. pylori is very common. It spreads through the water contamination. So 60-70% of population, especially in underdeveloped area, is positive for H. pylori, but all of them do not have gastric ulcer. So what is the thing which causes H. pylori to lead to the peptic ulcer? Those strains of H. pylori which have got this gene, cytotoxin associated gene, that is CAG-A, CAG-A gene, that is cytotoxin. C means cytotoxin, A means associated, G means this. So CAG-A, which produces toxin, vacuolating toxin, that is VAC-A. It is associated with peptic ulcer. So this CAG-A strains of H. pylori produces a toxin which is called VAC-A. This will lead to gastritis, and that gastritis will lead to excess acid production, and that will lead to ulceration. Gastritis will lead to ulceration, and then once this excess of acid is there, it will not allow it to heal. So that it becomes a chronic gastric ulcer or chronic duodenal ulcer. So it is present in all duodenal ulcer patients and 70% of gastric. So H. pylori is associated with all duodenal ulcer patients, and not all gastric, but 70% of gastric ulcer patients. So this is very important case of duodenal ulcer, as well as peptic this gastric ulcer. There are other factors also which lead to the ulcer formation. In addition to this vacuolating toxin of cytotoxic associated gene A, strains of H. pylori. Now, what are other? It releases urease, protease, and phospholipase. Now, protease will break down protein. That mucosa will break down. Cell will break down. Phospholipase, cell membrane wall is phospholipase, so it will break down. Urease will break down urea, and it will produce ammonia and another chemical substance which is a toxin that will come later on. It recruits polymorphonuclear leukocytes which release myeloperoxidase. It also promotes thrombotic occlusion of surface capillaries, so there is ischemia. This ammonia elaborated by the urease by breakdown of urea will lead to excess of gastrin secretion, which will lead to excess of HCl secretion. So this is how these various factors of the H. pylori strains lead to the ulcer formation. One is toxin vacuolating A, then production of urease, protease, phospholipase, and then these will lead to the various other damage. This is a gastric gland, and these are the H. pylori on the surface. They never penetrate the uh, mucosa. They are always in the surface mucosa, surface mucus layer. They don't invade. But from there, here they release all those their cytovacuolating toxin, protease, and that phospholipase, urease, all those they lead, and that goes in the inside the gland wall. So H. pylori causes antral gastritis. That I told you, the vacuolating toxin lead to antral gastritis, and antral gastritis, which in turn causes increased acid production. Inflammation stimulates the G cell, gastrin producing cell, to produce excess of gastrin and increase acid production. Inflammation, that is gastritis, will stimulate parasympathetic nerve and increase acid secretion. Urease breaks down the urea, ammonia, and monochloride, which is toxic to the epithelium. Then phospholipase damages surface epithelium. It also impairs duodenal bicarbonate production, that H. pylori, not this. And this altered milieu leads to gastric metaplasia in the duodenum, and H. pylori colonizes and causes duodenitis. Actually, H. pylori is not found in the duodenum. Intestinal mucosa, it is not. It is found in the gastric mucosa. And they say that then how to explain the duodenal ulcer, which is a 100% associated with H. pylori. They say it is also not very proved, but they say that there is a gastric metaplasia of the, like intestinal metaplasia of that gastroesophageal junction. Here it is a gastric metaplasia of the duodenum. It is intestinal gland which becomes the gastric. Why? Because it is more resistant to the acid. So gastric metaplasia of duodenum, and that gastric metaplasia epithelium will be infected by H. pylori, and that will lead to duodenitis, inflammation of duodenum and ulcer. So that is a mechanism. Main thing is whether it is pyloric gastric ulcer, whether it is gastritis, or it is duodenal ulcer, it is duodenitis. So that is the main. Now, what are the H. pylori related disorders? This is not important for you, but you should know that one is chronic gastritis, peptic ulcer disease, gastric carcinoma, gastric lymphoma, reflux esophagitis, and non-ulcer dyspepsia. So these are the various conditions. See, gastric carcinoma, H. pylori, peptic ulcer disease, chronic gastritis. Gastritis is first symptom, that's how peptic ulcer produce. Gastric lymphoma, we'll come to that. Reflux esophagitis, we have already talked about. GERD and non-ulcer dysplasia. So these are the various mechanism how it causes the peptic ulcer. Now, this non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs also lead to cancer, ulcer formation, and they are COX-1 inhibitor. Cyclooxygenase inhibitor, and they cause decrease in mucus secretion, decrease in blood flow. You know that prostaglandin secretion is inhibited by, I told you, prostaglandin has got very important role in the gastric mucosa in prevention of the, because it enhances all those defensive mechanism, that tight epithelial barrier, then bicarbonate, surfactant, as well as mucus secretion, and rich blood supply. So all those three factors which are affected by the this prostaglandin, the prostaglandin is inhibited by these non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs. It is not produced. So all those that defending mechanism are not there. They are decreased, and that will lead to imbalance. So that will lead to ulcer formation. So that's how they now. So in case of NSAIDs, you should know it is a cyclooxygenase inhibitor, and it leads to decreased production of prostaglandin, and that will lead to decreased mucosal defense. All those 3, 4 the mucosal defense will be affected, and that will lead to ulcer formation. So this is all I wanted to tell you. Only thing in briefly, I will tell you what is the difference between duodenal ulcer and gastric ulcer. Duodenal sites are 4 times more common than gastric. As I told you, no, duodenal ulcer is more common than gastric ulcer. The most common in middle age, that is 40 and all, younger age group. Male, it is 30 to 50 years, younger age group. Male or female is 4 to 1. Here, male female ratio is 2 to 1. Genetic link, 3 times more common in first degree relation. More common with blood group O, associated with increased serum pepsinogen. H. pylori infection common up to 95 to 100%. Smoking is twice as common. Now, gastric ulcer common in late middle age. Incidence increases with age. Male to female ratio 2 to 1. More common in blood group A. This is O, this is A. Generally. And then use of non-steroid anti-inflammatory drug is more associated with gastric ulcer than duodenal ulcer. Less rate is 75%, 70% cases of H. pylori positive, not 100%. This is about 100%. I know different books write different. You can write 100% here, 70%. And some patient, 20% patient of gastric ulcer have also got duodenal ulcer. So these are the differences. And difference in morphology is important because, as I told you, in duodenal ulcer, there is no chance of becoming a malignancy. So all those gross morphological features I told you are not very important for the duodenal ulcer, because we have not to differentiate between the duodenal ulcer and duodenal cancer. Here in gastric ulcer, those features are very important, and that's why we talked about ruby, size, then margins, then base, all those features, because we want to differentiate between gastric ulcer and gastric cancer. So I finished the lecture. Thank you so much. If you have got any question, you can ask.